Left of the box. Donald Trump had tweeted this out or truthed this out. And as everyone is pointing out, that's the Matterhorn. That is Switzerland. This was a bit of a play on his joke that Canada is going to become the 51st state of the United States. But just there's so much wrong with this picture to begin with because it's AI generated, so it sucks right off the bat. But just wearing a business suit on top of a mountain overlooking another mountain with a big Canada flag that is not accurate because the stem does not go down to the edge. Stupid picture. But it's a bit rubbing in the face, the idea that, Donald Trump is joking about Canada becoming the 51st state. And I'll talk a little bit more about why there's a certain level of angst with that statement. But here's Bernie Sanders pointing out, Trump has suggested that Canada become the 51st state in our union. Does that mean we get to adopt the Canadian healthcare system and guarantee healthcare to all, lower the cost of prescription drugs, and spend 50% less per capita on healthcare? I'm all for it. And sometimes the joke that gets thrown back at Americans when they say, oh yeah, Canada should be the 51st state, we say, well, you should be the 11th province. But the reality is, we don't want you. I like the border. As much as I'm for a borderless world, right now, as is, I like being a Canadian versus the idea of merging and becoming any sort of relation with Americans. Because there's a difference depending on what side of the border you're on. And, on my channel, I talk about all the downsides of, the Canadians, the colonialism, the white nationalism that happens up here, the standard of living, what's happening to our healthcare. I bitch and complain about that all the time because I want it to be better. I want this country to be better. But as is right now, I much prefer to be here than in the United States. It's much safer for me. Our healthcare system up here, as flawed as it is, has saved my life 5 times over. But the thing is that this joke is becoming really, there's some anxiety attached to this now. So this is a Twitter account called Polling Canada. Dear anti-Canada Canadians that are here, please unfollow me. I don't want your unpatriotic crap in my feed. Thanks. Now, I have a Canada flag in my logo, on my handles and stuff, but it's not out of patriotism. I'm not proud to be Canadian. I'm grateful to be Canadian. But I understand this, though, what Polling Canada is talking about, because more people are joking about this. So Kevin Sorbo, horrendous human being, tweeted out, Annex Canada. In Polling Canada, just saying, stay in your own lane, yank. And some people are joking they'd have to find us on a map first. But then there's also people saying, definitely wouldn't be opposed to it. Not one bit. 51 state, 100. Run a poll. People saying, I'm with Kevin. I dare you to open a poll about this. Next time I get a survey invite, please put a question. Do you strongly disapprove of USA annexing Canada? Phrase it however you want. Blah, blah, blah. Run the poll. Like most of the replies here, I would welcome my new overlords. I'd vote to become an American. We would be better off. No, we would not. Basically, a lot of Canadians saying, oh yeah, sure, let's become American. And a lot of Americans teasing us about it. Like, oh yeah, you're definitely going to become, the 51st state at some point. And here's where my anxiety is about this, because they're joking about annexing Canada and stuff like that. And would we ever see something like what's happening in the West Bank? No. But could it happen? Possibly. You see, there's a certain level of anxiety of being the neighbors to the United States when you have somebody who's so unhinged like Donald Trump in power. And Justin Trudeau has said it before that he means what he says. Like when when it came to the tariffs in particular, like Donald Trump fully intends to go through with what he says. And so right now he's joking about annexing Canada or making Canada the 51st state. But with the way the world is going, especially with certain resources that will become more valuable than oil, let's say water, and how much water and natural resources Canada has, do I rule it out? No. We're getting into the day and age where that type of intrusion, it's not a joke. And in fact, I know it's not a joke because Canada does it to sovereign Indigenous nations that are within the borders of Canada. Because there's the Wet'suwet'en area where Justin Trudeau and the Liberals and the federal government is invading Indigenous land to force a pipeline through. So Canada is already doing it within the borders of Canada because there are Indigenous areas that was never ceded. So land that was never part of Canada to begin with, that Canada now surrounds, and Canada regularly will invade these lands. So it's already happening here. Like Canada is also an apartheid state. There's not, the thing is that it's scary being next to the United States with these attitudes flying around, knowing the power dynamic, knowing that really, if the states wanted to, there is nothing stopping them. They are the most powerful military in the world. There is that intimidation, that threat that I don't think is so veiled these days. Like it is real. And I don't think a lot of people are really waking up or really realizing that. But when it comes to getting our resources or getting our water or putting their influence on our economy, Canada has very little power in those situations. And it won't look like what's happening in the West Bank. It won't look like what's happening in Gaza. But it can still happen. It'll just look different. Colonialism has been happening for as long as the Institute of Colonialism has existed. And the only thing that changes is how it looks. What it does, how it does it still occurs. It just looks different. So a lot of people here in Canada don't see what's happening in Israel and what Israel's doing as the Colonial Institute because it looks different than what had happened here in Canada when it came to Indigenous lands here. So I get worried that those jokes are not so much jokes, because how often have Americans have had to justify, like, oh, that thing he said, that horrendous thing that Donald Trump said, that's just a joke. But then there's like, but he said this thing earlier and he went through with it. So that thing that people thought was a joke, it turned out that wasn't a joke. And Donald Trump is unhinged enough right now that this is an actual worry. Like, I don't think we'd be bombed or anything like that, but I think a lot of our resources that we currently have control over might be taken away. And I don't know what that would look like. I don't have the foresight to know what that looks like, but being next to the United States with how unhinged they are, it is worrisome. Where he might just think, oh yeah, we can just buy a province if we want and then exploit their resources. What would stop him? Yeah. That is like me catastrophizing. I do that a lot. That's why I have trouble sleeping. And why I really need a good anti-anxiety medication, which I currently do not have. But, I can't say I rule it out. And, there's the environmentalists that are always like worried that the next real wars out there will be wars over water. Canada will definitely be a target. And, we're fortunate that there is only one country on our border. Unfortunate that it's the United States. So, yeah.